All right. I just recently woke up, just rolled out of bed. I really wanted to take a walk while I made a video. So it was too dark last night, so I was going to go this morning, but I slept too late, so now I'm going to just sweat my nuts off in this California desert on this bike path. Since Eric's been a little occupied, and I'm trying to make a little bit of a name for myself as somebody who also knows what they're talking about, like Eric, I decided I would try to make an on-topic video. I've been emailing back and forth with this ISTJ guy named Max, and we've kind of had to do a new ISTJ video for a little while, probably, and maybe I'll talk about TE in general a little bit and some other things. So I guess I see a lot of ISTJs who think that they are INTPs. They're usually men, and I mean, they are a certain presentation of ISTJ, I suppose, that has more extroverted intuition development than you might normally see in someone in like their 20s. And so that, coupled with their demonstrative TI, can make them outwardly look like someone who does in fact use a lot of TI and NE, as they might very well do depending on their job or their hobby or whatever. But you sort of have to look for little key differences in their behavior, in their manner of speech, in the things that they choose to do with their lives. And just kind of the way they frame things in general. And like, you'll see that their understanding of things are actually quite different. I guess we'll start by saying that TE users, I would say front stack TE users, you'll often see them getting into math, science, engineering, things of that nature that are normally associated with, INTPs or maybe ENTPs or INTJs. And it based on what I've observed, it really couldn't be much further from the truth. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of INTPs that excel in the sciences. Albert Einstein is often touted as like the quintessential INTP. I don't actually think he is one, but I'm not going to get into an argument about that right now. I think INFPs are probably the ones, ironically, with TE seeking, that are going to want to get into a science because they're really interested in science and they want to learn more about it and they want to be good at it. And they're smart enough to do it. Don't get me wrong. They make great scientists, and I think they're often confused for INTPs. So basically the stereotype is wrong. I think your average, physics geek is actually an INFP and not an INTP. Probably a particularly smart one. Maybe, again, one who's a male and more likely to go into those fields for, social or biological reasons. ENFPs, third slot TE. Actually, you know what? I'll go back to ISFPs because we've typed a few of those recently, and they always seem to be in school for mathematics or some kind of like mechanical engineering or something. Again, especially if they're men. It's that TE seeking behavior makes them interested in it, and it makes them feel very competent when they excel at it, which they are perfectly capable of doing when they apply themselves. Because the funny thing is, it seems like FI users, no matter how much you want to shit on them, they at least have the motivation and the drive to accomplish what they want to get done. Like, my mom, she's an ISFP. We had this pool in our backyard, and her boyfriend wasn't getting rid of it, and she wanted it gone. So she literally went out there with a butter knife and dismantled half the pool with a goddamn butter knife until the neighbors noticed that she was struggling and brought some tools over. They're probably TE users. So the thing is she could have dismantled that entire pool by herself with a butter knife if she wanted to, because she just had the FI and the SE to get anything done that she wants to. I see similar behavior in my sister, who's an ESFP, third slot TE. Although she's actually much more capable of accomplishing things efficiently on her own. Once she got into car sales, got into the car business, got used to all the documentation and the number crunching and all that crap, her TE got shored up. The third slot TE really gives you this entrepreneurial spirit. ENFPs, ESFPs, they want to do something, they just get it done, and nobody's going to tell them really that they can't. ESFPs have a lot more, physical dewy power that allows them to actually, probably by and large make a lot more money than the NFPs, I guess, in a nutshell. They're also more interested in having money and having nice things and having nice clothes, because it's more of an extroverted sensing realm than an extroverted intuition realm. But either way, you'll see them having that TE third slot attitude where they really want to just make a name for themselves, and they want everybody to know that they can do it, and they just have that goal-oriented behavior where, ENFPs in particular, when they become entrepreneurs, they'll go to school for this, they'll go to school for that, they'll start a business and then sell it and then start another business, and they're musicians and they're programmers and they're 5, 6, 7 different things, and it just doesn't slow them down. They just do what they want to do. They figure out how to get it done effectively. They execute it. Moving up to TE second slot, ISTJs, INTJs. Basically, they'll often think there are other types because they don't relate to the way that TE is often described. They seem to think that TE gives you this sense that you're actually out there getting stuff done, that you're in leadership positions, that it doesn't have a whole lot of application in maybe a purely intellectual realm. But that's not true either. You see a lot of INTJs like Eileen, I hope you don't mind. They're kind of shut-ins, they may not really get out there or get into a situation where they're capable of, exercising their TE in a, fully actualized manner. They'll be stuck at home and they'll be thinking about things, and they'll be thinking about things in a TE way to themselves. And then when other people don't understand what they're saying, then they'll move right into 6-slot demonstrative TI to explain it. So it's going to be very, very hard for maybe some ISTJ or INTJ who's been disadvantaged due to their life circumstances to actually see just how much TE can influence their behavior. It'll still give them this behavior where they're framing everything in their life through, or most things in their life as a goal to be attained or a problem to be solved. And this is something that Eric's been telling to me, and we've been observing time and again in typing sessions. It's just a lot of the time it almost seems like they don't really just have any hobbies or things that they do for fun that they're interested in, but that's not necessarily the case either. They're much more likely to acquire knowledge for knowledge's sake because they're knowers. But a lot of the time they still want it to be applicable to something. They have a specific direction they're going when they're researching typology or some topic that they're interested in. They're like, I don't understand this thing. How does this thing work? And they want an answer that is succinct and direct, just like the kind of answers that they would tend to give themselves. They don't like wasting time with a bunch of, not necessarily, it could be like this, or, that's not true 100% of the time. No, see, TE just kind of draws a line of best fit and goes. And if an ISTJ or an INTJ is allowed to thrive, then they'll accomplish quite a bit. A lot of the time it might be in maybe a purely academic setting or something. You may not see them out in the public sphere making huge discoveries or anything like that, but they're just so incredibly productive with their time is what it comes down to. They don't like the feeling of sitting around whittling away their lives on things that don't necessarily matter. They know that it's important to get things done. It's important to figure out how to get things done right. An ISTJ, for example, will be really good at coming up to an existing system and tweaking it, right? Making small changes here and there that make the whole thing more efficient. And like 30 years in the future, somebody may not even know that it was them who did it, but on some level they'll be appreciating the fact that the ISTJs of history have just been maintaining and tweaking the system to make sure it's running very smoothly. And INTJs are the same way, but they take a much more global perspective, I suppose, as intuitives. They're looking for how to tweak maybe more abstract systems, maybe that have to do more with human interaction and economics and things of that nature. Trying to predict human behavior and financial systems and logistical systems and stuff like that. I don't know. I guess logistics is more of an STJ realm, but either or. First slot TE. These are the guys who, even if they seem like introverts, it seems like they spend a lot more time maybe perhaps taking electronics apart, putting them together, actually building systems and making them work. The TE DOMs are the ones who really put the system into action. They may not build it themselves necessarily. That's kind of what the SE guys are for. STPs are probably the best ones at actually constructing the blueprints that the TI and the TE users are putting together. But ESTJs can kind of do double duty on that. ENTJs seem to like to take a little bit of a step back. They mostly seem to work with, computer information systems and stuff like that if they do anything directly, but they seem to fare really well in kind of an alpha leadership position where they can kind of tell everybody else what they're supposed to do. And they're usually right. TE DOMs can be a little overbearing sometimes because they're so locked into that mode of thinking that when other people aren't doing things properly or aren't achieving anything or not solving any problems and perhaps just sitting there crying about it, they'll get very frustrated with those people. They often, you're not going to catch them doing that stuff. If they have a problem, then they're going to fix it. And if you come to them with a problem, they're going to show you how to fix it. And if you don't listen to them, they're probably not going to respect you. And that's fine. They're kind of right. Yeah, like I said, I mean, especially the combination of SE and TE. So your ESFPs or your ENTJs, they're just going to be so damn good at making money, at doing business stuff, it's just such a double whammy. ESTJs you're more likely to find maybe in middle management somewhere, or upper management even. They'll be less likely to be the actual CEO or the general or whatever the case may be. And again, that's because they don't have as much of a global perspective on things. Their attentionality is more granular. They're the ones who are noticing the little things in the system that need to be addressed. Although the ISTJ is going to be better than anybody at that. What you really want is an ESTJ with a team of ISTJs led by an ENTJ. Fifth slot. I know how to do a lot of things. Again, it's mostly locked into abstract kind of stuff. Like, if you want to know how to do something on the internet, I'll show you how to do it. Basically, if you want to know how to do anything that doesn't take a whole lot of labor or mechanical skill, then that's the kind of TE that I can do. Which brings me to an aspect of TE that sort of ties nicely back into INTJs and ISTJs, that it's actually not all external. We have to remind ourselves that even the extroverted functions are cognitive, meaning that they're taking place inside of your mind. Right? It's a manner of attention. It determines what information you're looking at and what information is being filtered out. And TE can be a total intellectual powerhouse and can even be turned to abstract systems, because it's and I guess I will say, this is why I think Einstein, for example, might actually be an ENFP or something, because the combination of extroverted intuition and extroverted thinking in particular, right, gives you somebody who is capable of analyzing, not just the mechanics of a car, right, or a machine or a skyscraper, but right, the mechanics, quantum mechanics, right, theoretical abstract systems, but still thinking about them through a TE lens. It's quite possible. They do it all the time. STJs are much less likely to focus their attention on those things than the NTJs are. ESTJs and ENFPs are probably the ones most likely to be interested in things like advanced science, theoretical physics and such things, or maybe they'll be interested in like war strategy. They'll read books about that kind of thing. They'll want to know like the theoretical backing sometimes behind the system that they're focused on. TE understands mechanics and logistics and such things in all manner of different contexts. It's not limited to worldly achievement. It only restrains your mind is essentially to figuring out how to get to the bottom of something. They seem not to be satisfied with just knowing things for their own sake, or doing something just for like a marginal increase in utility. They're not, it's not focused on accomplishment. It's focused purely on understanding. TE users, right, understand things as much as they have to. And TE second slot people will probably be the best example of that with demonstrative TI. Right? They're the ones who are more aware that people are going to be like, all right, listen, you're explaining to me how I'm supposed to do this, but do you even know how it works? And a TE tool will be like, well, yeah, I know how it works. This is how. A TE Dom might be like, well, kinda, but does it matter? Just do it. I know how to do it. And you'll get exactly the result you want. A TI user won't even care that they got the result that they wanted. They'll be like, yeah, but I still don't get why it worked that way. Right? It just doesn't matter. It seems like TE users, even the ones with SI, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be more forward-thinking a lot of the time. Meaning, what am I going to do next? What's the next step? All right, how am I getting from A to B? I guess back to ISTJs in general. I've known several of them. A lot of the time, they do seem really, boring or nerdy or Asperger's-y or dorky or goofy or any number of things that could easily also be associated with, NTPs or something. The difference kind of is that the fourth slot, or maybe even third slot, NE can look a lot more like silly and immature and goofy, kind of childish. And you'll see a lot in Eric's first slot, but when it's in your first or your second slot, you're capable of using it with much more finesse and maturity, right? You're not just using it to crack jokes or do something spontaneous. You're using it to generate possibilities. You're using it to, create art and beauty in the form of words and music and stuff like that. You're using it as, a processing engine to navigate through the potentialities around you. It's much more ingrained in your mental space. It's not actually something that people see a lot of the time from an INTP like me. It's going to be more obvious, really, in the fourth slot position, because they're less aware kind of when it's appropriate to engage it or how to appropriately engage it. INTPs often end up being dorky and nerdy and stuff because those interests lend themselves to their cognitive profile and their lifestyle, but honestly, I never really felt like at my core a nerd is really what I am. I'm not really designed to be a goofy person or anything. I'm just iconoclastic. That's the word I used. I'm just I don't belong here. But there's not necessarily anything goofy about it. It's more strange. ISTJs tend to blend in a lot better with the general populace. They, even with polar FE, they're still much more conscious of and concerned with what they're supposed to be doing. And they can be creative, they can be fun to hang around. Some of them are actually a lot of fun. You know, some ISTJs, the ones that aren't, you know, white kids from the suburbs, or, you know, white collar in general, often don't present the same way at all. You know, they don't seem as stiff or structured or anything like that. All it means is that they're basing what they do now really strongly on what was done before. And sometimes they really, really, really impress me. Like I knew I think he was an ISTJ. His name was Will. And this guy had an endless repository of information on basically everything. And it was accurate. Right? You'd be talking about new medical technology or something, and he'd jump in, he'd be like, well, I actually read about all this, and this is how it works. And it's like, wow, okay. Consider me schooled, you know? And sometimes I'd be like, I don't know, Will, that's not what I heard. Let's check this out. And he'll be like, and he'll immediately go look it up. And he'll be like, oh, you were right. Let me just change my information database so it's never wrong. You know, there's no fight. There's no, you know, pride thing about being proven wrong on anything. It's something you're more likely to see from somebody like me. You know, like ISTJs don't actually pride themselves on being right. They just want to know how everything works. And there's something to be said for that. A lot of the bullshit is filtered out with them. Throw out some fun things, I guess. I've noticed a little bit of a correlation. Like female ISTJs seem to like to dance a lot. They seem to be pretty coordinated with their bodies. I don't know if ISFJs experience a similar thing. You know, I see them perhaps, yeah, I guess they'll engage in more physical activity and sports and stuff than you might think. But they'll do it for fun, you know, they're not going to do it to be in really good shape or to be super competitive or anything like that. They're just very good at maintaining their body system, I suppose, aren't they? And they're concerned about it. An ISFJ is going to be more lazy about it because they're not always thinking about how their body's supposed to be working and what they should be doing with it, as long as they feel comfortable. Again, I could just be bullshitting right now. I'm just spitballing at this point. Yeah, I think that's about all I got for now. This is a pretty good length, about a half an hour. Yeah, hit me up in the comments. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I need to do anything better. Obviously, this isn't the best video quality or anything. Peace.